Not only am I the CEO of Gold Lasso, but I'm also a professor at the University of Maryland, and I love teaching. It's my passion. So thank you very much for coming so I have a chance to share some of the stuff that I've been doing with email newsletters over the past couple years. So if I catch you texting in class, I hit you over the head. Anyway, so Gold Lasso, just real quickly, we've been an email service provider since 2004, so we really know email very, very well. We worked with large media companies all the way down to affiliates. We've recently moved into helping publishers monetize their email newsletters using native ads. And we've done some affiliate marketing ourselves, so we're really familiar, probably been in your shoes. Just a quick poll, how many people have email newsletters right now? Okay, great. So really quickly, the current affiliate strategy that I've kind of been seeing these days is the spray and pray, right? There hasn't been a lot of targeting involved. There hasn't been a lot of creative put into things. And we're just really kind of hoping that it gets into the inbox and we have one large ad that we're sending to recipients, maybe a smaller, maybe a little bit of content. And really, this strategy just doesn't work anymore. It worked maybe 10 years ago really, really well. And every single year, it gets incrementally harder to make money with this strategy. And there's just no love from these guys. These guys just don't like you. Right? I hate to say it. They don't like anybody that's sending a lot of mail into their inbox. But if you know how to play the game right, and you know how to actually get people to click on what you want them to click on, then you'll be extremely successful and you won't have complaints. Well, I can't email into Gmail. I can't inbox into Gmail. I can't inbox here. And it's really not that hard. It's really, really not that hard. And the whole premise behind getting into the inbox is simply creating a brand. Creating a brand, talking to the audience, getting them to actually click on content and click on ads. All right, if they click on content, they're going to click on ads. So, I mean, it's not a secret, but that's the strategy now. If you want to survive in the email game, all right, you have to build a brand. People have to know who you are and to click on you. They have to trust you. I mean, that's where we're moving towards now. And so it's kind of interesting. So we took data from about 30, 40 publishers, and we put it all together in a playbook. You can go to our website, goldlasso.com/playbook, and download it. It's around 60 some odd pages, kind of like a presentation. So all the data that I'm covering and all the information I'm covering in this presentation is available in the playbook as well. So it's very helpful. There's also a lot of tips on how publishers are now monetizing their newsletters. So let's go back to the beginning and say, well, why build an email brand? Okay, and really, when you're building an email brand, you're not relying on Twitter, Facebook, Apple, and Google for traffic. It's your direct connection to the individual, and it's your most engaged audience. It's publisher owned. It's the highest quality traffic that you can get, and it's the most profitable by far. According to the Direct Marketing Association, email is still returning about $38 for every $1 invested. Right? It hasn't gone away. It's still the most powerful channel in the digital marketing space because it's the most profitable and most valuable. The problem is it's one of the hardest to scale. So just to kind of get an idea of where email is going in the industry, it's growing. It's not going away. People say, well, email's dying. Less people are using email. That's not true. All right. There's a lot of there's about 4.3 billion accounts by the end of 2016. So just it's going there, and a lot of third world countries are now coming on board. The first thing that somebody does when they get on the internet is what? They get an email address. Right? If they want to sign up for a service, what do you need? An email address. If you want to buy something, you need an email address. So email is not going away. It's not dead. And it's become a very, very important channel for publishers in general because, again, it's their direct link. And also, this is kind of interesting, McKinsey did a study as well. It's returning about 3 times higher than social media as well. So anything that you're investing in social media, the profitability, all the stats are there. That this is still the channel to really, really concentrate on. Okay, so what are the types of email monetization? So I think from an affiliate standpoint, everybody's familiar with the one big ugly ad that you send. Okay, but the three other types that that publishers are really focusing on, that's really driving things now, is display, banners, okay, big deal. Native, which we do, all right, to create a nice blend between content and advertising. And then what you have is standalone advertising as well, but the catch there is that it's publisher branded. There's a big difference. Does anybody know why that would be important to have a publisher branded standalone advertisement? Anyone want to take a stab at it? Come on, it's a small group here. What? Efficient, but it's trust. People trust the brand. They trust that what you're sending them is legitimate. It's not like, oh, we don't know who sent me this ad. Okay, it might be a great offer that's coming through. It might be 60% off, or that might save my life from a heart attack, whatever it is. But how do I trust that it's coming from a reliable source? If it's published by the brand saying we're vouching for this, there's a big, big difference in the response rate. Okay, so these are the three main forms of email monetization. The fourth that I didn't put up there because it's a little bit more esoteric is data monetization as well. People are monetizing email hashes with cookies, and that's kind of whole ad tech side of the business. But these are the three main components of email monetization these days. So the major concept with your email newsletter that you have to do is you have to train the audience to engage, period. And it's a very, very easy thing to do. And it's how you set up your content. If there's no engagement, if people aren't clicking, just like in the affiliate world, if people aren't clicking, you're not making money. It's the same thing. Even with banner ads these days, I'm very much involved in programmatic media buying, and it's a little bit different than affiliates. And these are major brands that are wanting to advertise these days and are using programmatic methods to do it. But they are really looking for conversions, just like an affiliate does these days. The branding dollars are gradually disappearing, and they really want engagement. So you got to deliver it to them. So here, this is a big publisher mistake. They just shove as much content in the email as possible, and not much. They might throw an ad there to the right, but it's not training the visitor saying, oh, look, there's links there. I need to click on it to get more information. So, and then the other mistake on the end, I don't have an example here, is just sending one big ad. So you have one extreme to the other extreme. You have to find that happy medium. And that happy medium really comes in the form of content, right? And I know that for those of you who are not big content developers, there's content aggregation that you can do. I mean, there's so much content available now, and it's unbelievable the amount of unprofessional content that people engage with these days to make money. I could tell you my 12-year-old daughter creates videos on YouTube and has thousands of people that are sitting there watching it and engaging with it. So if my 12-year-old daughter can do it, I promise you that you guys shouldn't have any issues with creating content. For some reason, affiliates in general that I've noticed, they don't like creating content. They just like the mechanics of moving it, but you have to really focus on your content strategy, and it's much more easier these days than it was, even a few years ago. As a professor, I really like to teach things in frameworks because it kind of helps people digest it. And we created a framework here called the DART framework. And this is how the email monetization really works. It's called design, amount, relevance, and the technology involved. And the first thing we'll talk about is design. People have very limited attention these days, and they scan things, they don't read them. And this is what we call an F pattern, all right? So this is a heat map of how people read newsletters, and they scan from left to right, just like everything else, and their eye drops off. So if you have more than a 640 width on your newsletter, the eye will drop, especially if they're reading on a desktop. Mobile is a different story. You want to make sure everything is responsive there. But you want to always put the most important content and the most highest performing ad units on the left side, right? It's not Hebrew, right to left. This is English, left to right. And just an idea now is that more and more email now is being read on mobile. So making sure that responsive design and that your email is responsive and can be read across all major consumer email clients, web-based consumer email clients for mobile is very, very important. Hi, Steve. All right. The other recommendation that we have as part of the DART framework is one column. And that's part of the responsiveness. 2 columns in mobile is terrible. You don't want to have people pinching to see and view the ad. You want to make sure that they can go right through and see the stories, and they can flip through with their thumb very, very quickly. And if something catches their eye, boom, they can click on it. So 1 column is important. 2 columns if you have to at the most for desktop. All right, and again, all the important stories go to the left. All right, all the important content, the most engageable, everything goes to the left. And in the design part, we can kind of take a look at the anatomy of an email column. We go on to shoot for rectangles, not squares. Does anybody know we want rectangles 4x3? And I know that Steve knows the answer to this. Why do we want images that are 4x3? You're holding it in your hand. Right. Well, most cameras and the SLR cameras these days, for everything else, they're done in more wider 4x3 ratios. Squares are really, really bad. They don't render as well. So you really want to go for the rectangles. And you want to put the headlines to the left or above. Very important. 60 characters max on the headline. All right, 60 characters max, at least 4 points, and larger than the intro copy. Why? Because the eye drops off. All right, you want the headline to be noticed right away. You want the headline to be clicked on. And more than 60 characters, again, the eye starts to not follow. 80 characters max for intro copy. And the intro copy is optional. You don't have to have it. Sometimes people want to include it, a little bit more teaser in there. That's fine, but no more than 80 characters and no more than 2 lines. Right, and this is what we've found out from about 40 publishers across the board of what works best in terms of engagement and training to engage. And no more than 2 lines for both headline and copy. Okay, we got that. Right. And this is kind of interesting. You always want to render for the top. So, of course, you'll know who is opening up on what client. Make sure that, that your email renders on there. According to Litmus, the iPhone is killing it in terms of market share. 32%, then 15% on the Gmail, iPad, Google Android. Some of it was actually kind of pretty surprising. But wherever your particular audience, if you have an older audience, they're going to be a lot more on desktop. If you have a younger audience, they're going to be more on mobile, obviously. But make sure whatever you do that everything is rendering for those top clients. All right. Next thing that we're going to go to is amount, part of the DART framework, and I call it cadence. How many stories is too much? How many ads are too much? And we have what's called like an engagement waterfall. So obviously, just like Google search results, the most important click-through engagement goes to the top and it gradually falls out. It's kind of interesting. There's a little bit of a dead cat bounce. At the bottom, people tend to look at the first 2 stories, okay, and then they scroll quickly all the way to the bottom. And so they might engage at the bottom if something interests them. So 50% of most of your engagement are going to the first 2 stories. So you need to make sure that whatever you're putting there, it's important. And also that, hey, let's put ads there too, because that's where people are clicking. 85% is for the rest, and 15% are clicking on ads if you use this format. So 15% of people that are actually opening are clicking on advertisements as well. The other thing is, it's kind of interesting. So we also looked at Facebook, the Google searches, the Twitter, New York Times, and it's kind of interesting. There's no set standard of how many ads to put into an email newsletter. You kind of want we look at 50-50. I mean, Google, it's kind of interesting. They have 10 per 10. Facebook, there's 4 ads for every 10 news items in the feed. Twitter, it's 3 ads for 10. The New York Times, it's 3 ads for 10. But this is really interesting. You look at the Washington Post and the New York Times and actual content sites, and you go to not the news feed, but inside the article itself, you're looking at 11 and 12 ads for every 1 story. So it's kind of an interesting phenomenon. So you want to look at double monetization, monetizing not just the email, but when you're clicking through to the story itself, jam-pack it with ads, as long as it's done tastefully. There's nothing wrong with that. And the big guys are doing it, why not you? The other part of the cadence is really the amount and how much can you send. We actually have a whole chart depending on if you send daily, if you send monthly, how much content you're producing to help optimize the number of sends. I know a very active audience, they're sending between 6 and 10 times a day, and they still have a very highly engaged audience. The attrition rate is extremely low. But it really comes down to how much content you're producing, the tolerance of your audience, right, and versus how much email you can send. And there is a formula for it. I could tell you that some people are very sensitive to the amount of email that they get, and they'll opt out very quickly. This actually comes back to the technology end. The preference centers are very, very important to have as well. So kind of moving through, relevance is another issue. And it's kind of interesting that we talk about relevance. Some people say, duh, we know you got to make it relevant. But these days, you have a lot of micro audiences that exist in the online world. I mean, it's become, with the amount of data that's available, it's much, much easier to split, slice, and dice and really kind of figure out where these micro audiences exist. And when you find out what these micro audiences are, you can kind of really tailor the newsletter specifically for these micro audiences using the same content and figuring out what resonates the best. And you're going to be really surprised that some of your most engaged users are the biggest jerks. I mean, here we have an angry commenter that we've realized that he makes sites the most money, the angry male. I mean, he tends to make sites the most amount of money because he's clicking on everything. He's creating the most page views. He's going through, all these things. But there's just, the too cool millennial. They're not as profitable. So you have to kind of find out, where these micro audiences exist. You're might have to do an additional data overlay on top of it. But once you find out, you can get a very good lift in your email revenue. But the other thing to keep in mind is that there's quickly diminishing returns. You can't slice it and dice it so much that the audiences are very, very small. So you kind of have to figure out that balance. I think most niche type of players, publications, there's probably 3 to 4 type of micro segments in there. If you're going very, very large, like a sports or or general news content, then the micro audiences tend to be much, much more. But just understand that there's huge diminishing returns. Don't overkill it. A lot of people try to slice and dice their lists too much, or they try to use too much dynamic content, and it's just a waste. It's not worth it. Just, you do a certain level there to find that balance. So we'll start moving on towards the technology end of everything, and we love automation. Automation is so important. There's no reason why you should be cutting and pasting inside a newsletter anymore. Those days are gone. There's no reason for it. You create content for your website. Why are you recreating the wheel for your newsletter? All right, RSS, real simple syndication, these ugly feeds, they are the best thing to use to automate your email newsletter. If you can find out a way, and there's plenty of plugins out there, to format your feed correctly according to what I showed you here before, you can very, very easily automate your email newsletter. The feed updates, the RSS feed updates, your ESP captures the feed, knows what it is, pulls it into the email newsletter, and it goes out to the right list. There's no reason why to reinvent the wheel on sitting there and recutting and pasting and everything. There's a lot of technology out there that works for your website that you're pushing your audience to. We found that the Joomla and WordPress, I mean, I'm sure most people are familiar with WordPress. Not as many people are familiar with Joomla, but the number of third-party extensions available, especially for RSS feeds and RSS feed formatting, is much more available to these two open source platforms. They're free platforms. Most hosting providers have them. And so we highly, highly recommend using one of these two. We know that larger publishers tend to kind of gravitate towards Drupal. That's okay too. It's just harder to find developers for it. But definitely find that has the best RSS feed formatting. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me or find me, and I'll tell you which plugins actually work to help format the feeds better, especially with Joomla. We're a Joomla shop. The Email Preference Center, I kind of can't say this enough. It's going to help you with your micro-targeting. There's plenty of times where you want to be able to send as much email as you can. And the tolerance level for it, you want to give people choices of, one, how much email they want to receive, and two, the types of kind of email they receive. And a lot of mistakes that I see from affiliate marketers in general is that it's just one opt-out. That's it. Someone comes, they see the opt-out link, they say, oh, this guy's sending me too much email. I like the content, but it's just too much email. So they click on the link, and that just opts them out, and that's the end of it. There's no other choice. You have to give people choices. And it will significantly reduce your email attrition and save your list because of it. And it will help throttle the cadence of the amount of email that you send as well. Once you see people starting to move and say, oh, I only want it twice a week, or I only want it every day instead of 5 times a day, it's going to significantly help. And it will be all automated as well. Kind of the last thing that I want to dive into on the technology end is clipping. Clipping and deliverability issues. So clipping happens when your email size is just too big. And there's just too much content in it. And so what happens is on mobile, especially on the iPhone, which still has 32% of the marketplace, it only shows half of your email or a quarter of your email, and then the rest of it, it'll be like, click here to have more. And guess what? Not many people actually click on it to get the rest of the stories. So the actual physical kilobyte size of the email is important. It also is important for deliverability as well. If you have too large of an email, then you're going to get blocked because Gmail and Yahoo, they're looking at the source and they're saying, oh, well, these guys want to send me, a gigabyte of information, of emails that are coming through, and they're huge, and we're just not going to let it through because the size is too big. So, if you're starting out, you're not sure what your reputation is and your deliverability reputation, we say start out with under 70 kilobytes. Very, very light on the pictures, on the images, text. As it fluctuates 100, and if you're consistently good, then you can kind of raise it to above 100, 130 kilobytes max. You need image optimization. Image optimization is very, very important. It should be done on your CMS platform. It should be done in Joomla or WordPress or whatever. Making sure that your 72 DPI, you have the lightest form, the lightest weight without losing as much resolution as possible. Because a lot of times what happens is that you have something that's in the HTML that's scaling the image down, but the image size itself is much larger. And some email clients don't render that. They'll just take whatever the actual image size is, and they'll ignore the newsletter size itself. The newsletter code itself. And then all of a sudden, somebody sees on one email client, which you don't have access to, one large image, and that's the end of it. So be very, very careful about that. Really, email's not dead, and it's not going away. It's been here for 40 years. It's simply evolving. It's finding its place. And if you want to do commerce, if you want to do these things, like I tell my students, you're not going to Snapchat me. You're going to email me, right? So they get used to email. It's ingrained part of it. It's an older generation. It's not a younger generation, but they get it. By the time they're in college and they move forward, so it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. Hopefully it gets better. Hopefully Google and Apple and others, make the experience better. But it's just simply evolving. Everything I covered is, again, available in the presentation download. There's a lot more nuances that I kind of didn't dive into. I just kind of wanted to show you what was working in terms of formatting, in terms of segmentation, building the brand. because that's the only way to survive as a mailer, especially in the affiliate world, in the media world these days, is actually really building that brand and building things that people want to click on. If they're clicking on your content, they're going to click on your ads, I promise you. So that's it. That's all I have. Hopefully I shed some light on a few things for you guys, gave you some food for thought. I'm always here to answer questions. And I love helping and teaching, so I'll open it up to any questions that anybody has. All right, guys are geniuses. I'm just kidding. All right, I'm just kidding. Any additional questions? Yes. So Gmail is all about engagement. It's as simple as that. If people aren't clicking on your email, and the first step is not marking you spam. Making sure you're getting in. If Gmail, if you don't have a reputation, they're gonna automatically put you in the promotions tab. It's before you hit the spam box. If people start moving you to spam, they're gonna next move you to spam, and then they're gonna block you. When people start engaging with your newsletter on a regular basis in the promotions tab, it will start pushing it into their main tab. And that's what you want. So look, if you're using a purchase list, you're gonna have a problem. All right, it's as simple as that. Purchase lists they work, but it's extremely hard to work with. You have to find ways to build your lists organically. Or if you buy or do co-registration or any other types of methodology, you have to start engaging with people right away. And the people that aren't engaged, don't send email to them, because they're not doing you any good. Because what's happening is that Gmail is looking and saying, oh well, 80% or 90% of the people are just not even clicking on it, and they're marking it as spam or whatever. Don't even bother with those people. You only want to send to people that are opening and clicking your email. Any other questions? Great. Oh, yes, sir. They do it across the board for everyone. I mean, it's just well, no, that's not true. Let me take that back. They know right away. They have a list of all the email service providers out there. They look for opt-out links. They're scanning it and they're looking for opt-out links in the email itself. If you have an opt-out link, they know it's promotional. So that's what they're individuals. It's a little bit different. I mean, there are times where the algorithm is not as good and you wind up in the promotions tab, but they're looking for those. They're looking for can spam compliance. They're looking for that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really simple. I mean, newsletters these days, it should be quick, to the point. Nice, appealing images, but not too big. Again, the headlines, no more than 2 headlines, no more than 60 characters in the headline, because the eye is going very, very quickly. People are not sitting there, oh, I'm going to read. They're not reading it. They're scanning it. And as soon as something catches their attention, then they'll click. And they're scanning very, very fast. So the last thing you want in the format is the eye to drop. Because if the eye starts dropping, then they're disengaged and they stop clicking and they just delete. So if they're struggling, if the font, and that means includes the font is too small, if the font is too big, I mean, there is just kind of like a Goldilocks scenario where it's just right. And from the research that we have, it's 14 points, fonts, on it, unless somebody has some really Coke bottle glasses or something. I mean, that's that's really kind of what you're kind of gaming for here is really for the scannability. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. On the headline, I believe. Yeah. On the headline. Yes, sir. So social media is beyond my pay grade. I know a little bit about it. The one thing, look, this is my personal opinion. Facebook is a double-edged sword. All right, Facebook is a double-edged sword. They want to create a walled garden. They want to lock your content in. All right, and like even comments. I don't. I tell publishers, don't use Facebook comments on your site. Don't do it, because now Facebook owns your comments, and comments are important, and you're sending people back to the site. You're not getting people back in. If somebody wants to post their comment to Facebook, that's great, and I love that. But I don't like it when you have to use the Facebook instant pages and all this, because you're not getting anything back to your site. And I just think it's just why do it? I mean, there's a balance. But anyway, I got set. My time's up, and nice lady in the back. Just a reminder, I think you guys got a like a survey or something, I guess, to see how good or bad I am. I think they're also doing a drawing as well, so make sure to turn it in. I think they're doing the drawing for Affiliate Summit East. Thank you so much for coming. Hopefully I was able to help anyone here. Have a great day.